Well, everyone, it's been a while since I've done a rant, but this is something that I really felt I had to discuss because I watch anime every once in a while. I'd sit down with a series and try to watch it from start to finish, and usually I do. Not always, but usually I do. And here are two unfortunate facts of life. Fact number one is that I happen to like romantic comedy animes, and and this fact is unfortunate because of the fact number two, and that's the fact that a lot of romantic comedy animes don't really, or the companies making them don't really know how to give these series a good climax. This is a big problem with this genre, and you need not look further than a lot of the series on my top 10 animes list. I talked about School Rumble. I recently saw the second series of that, and it did not have a good finish. It didn't come to a climax. Granted, the final episode nearly made me cry, but that still didn't count as a good climax. Just like with Love Hina, I'm going to have to wait for the OVA before I'm going to see how the series is going to end. I recently saw Ouran High School Host Club, and regardless of how gay people think this series is, it's actually pretty funny, and it actually had a pretty good story. The problem is, when you make an anime series of a manga that's still being made, published, obviously it didn't end anywhere. It had a good finish, but it wasn't a conclusive climax that I was hoping for. But more recently, I saw this one series that I'm now going to talk about. Kare Kano, or known to the English-speaking world as His and Her Circumstances. First of all, I thought this anime was honestly, because you listen to the title, it sounds like it's based on some kind of Victorian-era novel, Pride and Prejudice and all that. But anyway, the title aside, I started watching this series, and actually I started to like it very, very much. It's made by Gainax, and it's also based on a manga, like a lot of anime are. And the difference here was that, say, to Ouran, was that the manga was, I believe finished already by the time they started making the anime series. And the way this whole series began, it started off actually really, really good. I really liked the opening. The first half of the series was really the best part of it, because the main characters were the main lead was a very typical sort of male protagonist for a romantic comedy series. The only difference was that he was angsty as all hell, but really not a lot of personality traits. Kind of borderline gay in certain ways, but not really, excessively, or he was just a standard Joe. It was really the female main character, and I can't remember her name anymore for some reason. But she was a weird character because she proclaims at the very beginning that she's like the queen of vanity. And that's the funny thing about it, is that the series starts off with the main character being a total bitch, consciously being a bitch, and being really proud of it in some certain ways. And the whole series, and where this title really comes from, is like this social facades of these characters crumbling away as they fall in love. They don't fall in love instantly, and it's handled really, really interestingly for a romantic comedy. It's not like the characters are already head over heels for each other, and there's just something standing in their way. And actually, that's the biggest problem with it also, because for some reason the romantic angst and the romantic problems get resolved already during the first half of the season, which really begs the question, what exactly is the latter half of the season supposed to be? Well, the good thing about this is that it actually made way for the side characters and the supporting characters and allowed a little bit of story focus on them, which I didn't mind. The only problem that I'd had up to that point with the series, one was that in the first episode, the leading female voice actress wasn't really performing her role really well, but it got better from there on, or I got used to it. Either way, the only big problem I had with this series, and it's a problem that exists in a lot of other anime, was that there was just an excessive amount of time devoted at the beginning of each episode to recaps. And everybody knows this. Animes The animes are usually serialized, and that's why they need recaps. And for some series, especially when they're being shown on television, it's a good thing, because if you miss an episode, then it recaps usually what happened in the last episode, and so you don't miss out on anything. The big problem is that a lot of serialized anime use recaps the wrong way. I'll use an example from one of my favorite animes, Magic Knight Rayearth. I love the series, but the recaps are ridiculous. I never realized that I didn't realize up until I saw the series on DVD, where you watch each episode back to back. You realize suddenly that the recaps are treating you like you're watching the series for the first time. They're basically starting off at the very beginning, then they sort of jump into the last episode. So it's not really that bad with Magic Knight Rayearth. In Kare Kano, it's just crazy. They start off at the very beginning of the first episode, and they pretty much summarize the whole plot of the series up to that point. And I was getting really sick of this, and I was hoping, oh God, by the time we get to these the supporting characters and everything, I was really, really hoping that they would stop recapping so much. And finally we come to the series' middle point, and what happens? They devote not one, but 2 entire episodes to basically recapping and summarizing in short form what has happened in the series up to that point. And guess what? If I had any common sense, I would have skipped those episodes. But because I didn't, I realized that the second episode at the latter half actually had a little bit of an original story. So my question is, why put it there? Because any sane person would have skipped those 2 episodes, and it was only because I was forced to watch them. Because I was watching this series with my sister, and she didn't want to skip anything because she was afraid she'd miss something. And thank God for that, because we would have missed this little bit of storyline. But everything else started to go downhill from there, honestly. The big problem, okay, it's easy. It started to get really like in that artistic animation style. If people have seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, you know what I'm talking about. The problem with NGE back in the day was that, as I understand, the director and the studio, Gainax, had a difference of opinion. Gainax basically gave a big fuck you to the director of NGE, and he had to resort to a lot of experimental animation, a lot of psychedelic shit, just to get through those final last episodes of NGE. And everybody remembers the series finale. It's probably the most profoundly depressing happy end of any anime series I've seen. I'm not kidding about this. I'm one of those people that started watching NGE because I thought it looked really cool. And by the time we got to the latter half of the series, I was switching off and thinking, what the fuck is this whole thing about? And of course, when the fans were upset by that, the director came in, basically gave us everybody a fuck you and make the big movie that has the depressing ending. So you got 2 depressing endings for the price of 1. Nice. And Gainax fucked up Kare Kano exactly the same way, except they didn't really have any need to start using like paper puppets and showing like the hand of the, I'm guessing like an intern switching the layouts, and at some points are not even animated. They just used filmed footage and character voiceover over it. And the biggest fuck you to the series comes at the very end, when you think that the series is finally progressing towards something, because there's no climax, there's nothing exciting happening at the latter half of the series anymore, because all the romantic stuff has been resolved. You think that they're going to the Culture Festival would be like the big final climax, and in fact that's what it is building up to. Except, the third to last and the second to last episode, again, are devoted to summaries and recaps of what has happened up to that point, and we finally get to the final episode. That episode is almost, I would say, 90% silent, and exactly that amount of percentage is nothing but still images from the manga. And we never get to the Culture Festival. The series ends on a complete anticlimax, and Gainax has fucked up again. How do you do that, honestly? But that has been my rant of Kare Kano. See you on the next one.